the right to write. I have the right to express myself. I have the right to speak. If you want to try to say that what I am saying or writing is hurting you, it hurt your reputation, and therefore you want damages from me and you want to be able to sue me, well, the defense against a libel charge is the truth. So the question isn't, did what they wrote hurt you? The question is, did what they write, was it the truth? Was what they wrote the God's honest truth? Because if what they wrote was the God's honest truth, maybe it hurt you, maybe it didn't. But that doesn't fucking matter, because if it's the fucking truth, it's the fucking truth. In order to get objective justice, you need objective truth. Jesus talked about the truth as well. You ignore the most important virtues. You care about tithe and dill and cumin. You tithe dill and cumin, and what other thing do you tithe? There's 3 goddamn spices. You want to make sure that we give to the church. You Sadducees and Pharisees. You want me to give you mint, and cumin and dill, which, what a crazy fucking... For your punishment, you need to give me 3 cloves of garlic and some dill and some cumin, some cinnamon. You need to give me 3 tablespoons of cinnamon, and then your sins will be forgiven. 3 tablespoons of cinnamon? That's how you're going to absolve me of my sins, with 3 tablespoons of cinnamon? But you forget the important virtues, such as faith and mercy and justice. And not only does Jesus talk about justice, but he talks about freedom. He talks about freedom for the oppressed, freedom for the foreigner to welcome the stranger, but freedom for the people in prison. He says to allow the innocent people that are in prison out, for them to be free as well. He quoted Isaiah. So for motherfuckers that don't believe in freedom, freedom is, the rights of mankind. The way you have to understand the rights of mankind is that if I say it's a right for me, then it's a right for everybody. And so for someone to say, that's, talk about some godly, the rights of man is, that's close to divine law. The rights of man is close to divine law. That's eternal law. Because anybody could say, there's an old adage that you could ban everybody, rich and poor alike, from sleeping under a bridge. But if you're rich, you got a place to sleep. If you're poor, that law is just for the poor. You can't sleep under this bridge. Where am I going to sleep? Well, you can't sleep here. Can't see it here. So a lot of laws are telling the poor peasant motherfuckers, you can't do A, B, C, and D. All you poor motherfuckers, you can't do all these other things that you might need to do in order to survive, because we're rich and we don't need to do that. So we're going to make a bunch of laws for you motherfuckers to follow. But when it comes to the rights, when it comes to our legal rights, the Bill of Rights, bar none, I feel like that's, you should read the Bill of Rights first, but then you should look at the structure of the government as well. But rights is universal, and ultimately natural law is pretty easy. It's life, liberty, and property. Debate property if you wish, but life and liberty is indisputable. We all have a right to life, we all have a right to liberty. And a lot of people say we have a right to property. That's John Locke. Jefferson says the pursuit of happiness. But then you had that one professor from Xavier, Timothy White, who said, well, the pursuit of happiness is just to acquire as much property. So we have a right to life, liberty, and property. Those are our natural rights. So the whole thinking process behind the rights is, what is good for me is good for thee. We all have a right to speak and a right to peacefully assemble, and these are rights that come from God. We didn't need to write them down. You always have a right to speak. Even when they say, hey, don't you speak, you can still say, burp, derp, and derp. They might try to bound and gag you. They might try to shut you up. But even then, you can, you have a right to speak. That's a God-given law. I'll end it off with the great motto of the revolution. I want to say this is what Ben Franklin or John Adams, they wanted this to be the motto for America. Resistance to tyranny is obedience to God. Resistance to tyranny is obedience to God. Resistance to tyranny is obedience to God.